Shirota is a lonely virgin who is forced to become a slave to the school's hottest girl after he accidentally glimpses at her melons. However, she starts developing feelings for him in secret, and now wants to taste his sausage. On that fateful day, Shirota is living his life as a scrub like usual, thinking how a bum like him is nothing compared to Takamine, who is the school's council president and the thick goddess who stands on top of the hierarchy. He realizes how different they are from each other, with the only similarity being that they always went to the same school. However, when Shirota is just being a chill guy, hiding in the gym storage, Takamine steps into the room. He wonders what this hot babe is doing in a room like that, and to Shirota's shock, Takamine starts taking off her shirt, revealing her plums and pepperonis, but puts on her bra afterward. Then, he continues the day, still thinking about her melons in class, when the teacher is about to hand the students their test results. When Shirota gets his, he fully expects to fail like usual, but when he gets a 52 on his test, he feels happy to see that he got a passing grade. However, when it comes to Takamine, she gets a score of 98, surprising everyone as Takamine has never gotten a score below 100 before. She expresses how she's not happy with her score, and to Shirota's surprise, she takes off her underwear, revealing her juicy rice cakes, and giving a feast for the eyes for both Shirota and you degenerates. At that moment, Shirota wakes up from his own consciousness, and it surprises him to see that he hasn't gotten his test result yet. He believes that getting a 52 is a dream, but when he takes his test from the teacher, he sees that it's still 52. Then, Takamine steps forward for her test result, and Shirota remembers her getting a 98. But to his confusion, Takamine receives a perfect score of 100, making Shirota think that he might be on crack. To find out the truth, he goes to the council president's office, where Takamine greets him warmly. But when Shirota confronts her about what he saw, she turns a full 180 and pushes him back. Takamine asks him if he has seen them, and he realizes that she's referring to him seeing her melons in the gym storage room. But when Takamine sees that he has, she decides that they should have a talk instead. She gets him a glass of water to drink, but Shirota thinks that he's getting expelled, and being nervous, he accidentally almost spills the water onto Takamine if it weren't for her dodging. However, Takamine sees this as a chance to demonstrate her powers, so she takes off her bra, activating her powers, and the next thing Shirota knows is that Takamine is completely drenched in water. It confuses him with what just happened, and Takamine tells him that he's the one who made her wet. But because of that, she orders Shirota to wipe her down.
Yes! Hell yeah!
While he's both nervous and creaming from underneath, he wipes her top, and she asks him if he doesn't realize it. She forces him to feel her melons, asking him if he sees what changes, and while he's busting a fat one to the softness, Takamine kicks his baby jewels and informs him that the bra she was just wearing has vanished. She explains her ability, the Eternal Virgin Road, where whenever she takes off her underwear, she can undo things like how she undodges the water and now gets herself wet. Suddenly, she takes off her buttons, revealing God's greatest twin creations, and tells him that while she's a hard-working person, minuscule mistakes will always happen that'll make her less than perfect. She tells about how in the past, she competed in a relay event, but while she was supposed to win, because of eating too many Taco Bell, she got a stomachache which caused her to lose and peed herself on the podium. However, when she took off her underwear later, it undid her loss, and the next thing she knew, she came in first place in that relay. She realized then that her ability was manifested because she had always been destined to be number one in existence. After explaining her ability, Takamine explains that because her underwear kept vanishing, she needs someone to always carry her change, and she declares that Shirota is that person. She wants him to be her closet, but he rejects her offer, and despite her pleading, Shirota tells her that she's sick in the head, and he refuses to work with her. Refusing to get rejected, Takamine stops him and forces him on top of her before putting his hand on her juicy melon. He realizes that it might be his lucky day, but to his shock, she screams so loud that the whole school can hear her. Suddenly, everyone barges in and Takamine acts like a victim to blackmail Shirota, telling everyone how he was about to go full P. Diddy on her. He realizes what Takamine truly wants after he rejected her, so without much choice, Shirota begs her to use her power, promising that he will become her closet. She takes off her underwear, and in the next moment, everything turns back to normal with Shirota as Takamine's new closet. For his first assignment, she orders Shirota to help her put her underwear on for her, the one she used to save him. Shirota grabs it from her bag, and without much choice, he puts it on for her. But to Takamine's surprise, Shirota has his eyes closed. She tells him how it's cute and points out how he has been making an effort not to look at her juicy plots. But instead of being disappointed, Takamine expresses how she appreciates his gentlemanly side, one that she always knew he had. Just then, she asks him to put on her bra next, and when he hesitates, she tells him not to cream too hard. Takamine's secret ability to undo time by taking off her undergarments, which Takamine has used to get on top of the school's hierarchy and become the girl of every guy's dream. Shirota gets the luck of a lifetime, being her new closet, carrying around her undergarments and helping her wear them. Just then, she pulls his hand and teases him with her plots, making him feel the sensation of a lifetime. But suddenly, she tells him that she will use him for her fun. Just then, 2 FBI agents barge in and arrest him, saying that he will now be locked in jail for what he just did to Takamine. And when Shirota looks back at that evil witch, he sees Takamine smiling with a tear in her right eye like a true villain. He wakes up in his bed, feeling relieved that it's a dream, and that he's not stuck in prison. Just then, he receives a text message, and when he looks at it, Takamine tells him not to be late while sending him a plotful picture. Then, when he gets to school, Shirota is still in disbelief after what just happened to him, hoping that Takamine is a manipulating witch who takes off her undies to time travel as a nightmare. She shows up behind him to greet him, which scares him, and everyone around can't believe that their queen bee, Takamine, is talking to a worthless scrub like Shirota. Takamine orders Shirota that as her closet, he has to come to the student council room, saying that she needs to talk to him. Then, when he enters the student council room, in all her beautiful glory, Takamine greets Shirota for coming there, and Shirota can't help but stare at her beautiful legs, which remind him of the other day. She asks him not to be strict as they are partners, but her words send a shiver down Shirota's spine when he remembers what she made him do. Suddenly, she throws him a bag, telling him to open it, and when Shirota does what he says, he is shocked to see that he's pulling out an undergarment. She explains that with all the undergarments in the bag, Shirota has to carry them around as her closet, and it is his duty to have them every moment of the day, so she can use her ability to fix her mistakes any time of the day. She adds that as soon as she uses her ability, Shirota has to put her undergarment back on immediately. Shirota tells her that it's impossible, suggesting that they do it during breaks when nobody is around, but she rejects his suggestion as she wants to use her ability as many times as possible. In order for that to happen, she needs to take off her undergarments multiple times a day, but she warns Shirota that if he disagrees, she will just undo how she saved him from going to prison and let him rot there forever. After hearing that, he promises to do his best, and when Takamine sees his determination, she also tells him that if he works hard as her closet, she will reward him in ways that he can only imagine in his wildest dreams. Suddenly, Takamine sweeps his leg, causing him to fall down to the ground, and she squats in front of him, saying that she can fulfill his greatest desires as his prize. However, she expresses how she would have preferred if Shirota enjoyed being her closet, saying how while she's embarrassed, she doesn't mind that Shirota was the one who saw her plots. Shirota refuses to get rizzed up and calls out her attempt to manipulate, deeming it nonsense, which Takamine admits that she did just try to manipulate him. Later in class, Shirota wonders what kinds of scenarios Takamine uses her ability for, and just then, the teacher asks Takamine to read a poem from their book. She reads it beautifully with every word having meaning, and when she finishes, the teacher praises her performance. Shirota thinks to himself just how amazing she was, believing that she won't use the ability often. But then, the wind blows inside, and the teacher asks a student to close the window to stop it. Suddenly, Takamine stands up and tells Shirota that she wants to redo it, which shocks him. In front of everyone, she takes off her undergarments, activating her ability to defy the laws of time and redo everything all over again. It brings back Shirota to before Takamine read the poetry, and when the teacher asks Takamine to read it, she does it again. But this time, she times her reading with the wind blowing inside the classroom. Her poetry reading brings Shirota and the others back to ancient times when life was simpler, and they watch Takamine as she reads out the poetry with a wind assisting her performance. It gets Takamine a standing ovation from everyone in class, and when she looks at Shirota, she smiles at him in great victory, as if telling him that she's the best due to her ability. Shirota realizes that if Takamine uses her ability for even trivial things, he will have to put her undergarments on her countless times. At that moment, Takamine throws a paper ball at Shirota, asking him to hurry up, and he realizes that it's time for him to do his mission. When he looks around, he deems it impossible to get Takamine her undergarment, and he decides to wait until the break. However, Takamine, having already made preparations, leaves Shirota's eraser on the floor in front of her, signaling to him to pretend to pick it up while putting on her undergarment. While Shirota initially hesitates, he remembers how Takamine can redo her, saving him from jail. So without much choice, Shirota pushes himself to do it. With an undergarment in his pocket, he approaches the eraser and pretends to pick it up. But when nobody is looking, like a smooth operator, he swiftly puts the undergarment on Takamine's slender legs and walks back to his desk. He looks around, and when he sees no one notices what he just did, he celebrates by himself. However, when he looks back at her, he realizes that he didn't put her undergarment on properly and that it's about to fall at any moment. She signals to him, telling him to fix it, and he realizes that while she knows her undergarment is slipping, she refuses to fix it without his help. Just then, the teacher starts calling the students' names, giving them their books back, and Shirota imagines how Takamine walks to the front while her undergarment slips to the floor. He knows how it would destroy her perfect image of beautiful purity, but because she refuses to be less than perfect, he can imagine how she will manipulate everyone to think that he was somehow responsible, which will end up with him as the scapegoat. Just then, he remembers how Takamine expressed to him that while she felt embarrassed if people saw her undergarments, she didn't mind if Shirota was the one who saw them. After remembering this, Shirota makes a decision, and when Takamine's name is called, Shirota walks to the front to get her book. The teacher questions him for stepping forward, and he lies to him, saying how he misheard Takamine's name for his, but because he's already at the front, the teacher asks him to give Takamine her book. When he does hand the book to her, she thanks him for it, and he wonders why he decided to protect her. Suddenly, when he tries to walk away, Takamine has her feet wrapped around his to stop him from walking away, ordering Shirota to put the undergarment on her properly. Without much choice, he uses his leg to push the undergarment up her leg, slowly getting closer to where it's supposed to be while feeling the plump and warmth that are there. Suddenly, Shirota's name is called and he gets surprised, but the shock causes his leg to push too far, hitting her danger zone and making her release happy noises. Later, the two gather in the student council room again, and Shirota expresses just how unbelievable she is. But Takamine informs him that she was merely testing him to see just what he's capable of. He asks her what she would do if he didn't get her book for her, and without any care, she tells him that she didn't think about it as she knows she can believe in him. Then, Takamine asks Shirota why he decided to save her from the embarrassment of people seeing her undergarments, and he doesn't know the answer to that question. Takamine suggests that he feels possessive over being the only person who gets to see her undergarments, and while he refuses to answer, Takamine knows the answer is yes. She expresses that to know that Shirota is obsessed with her actually makes her happy. Just then, Shirota asks her in return about the happy noises she released before, wanting to know the reason why, but Takamine shuts his lips, ordering him to never bring that up again. The next day after class, the professor tells Takamine to collect the assignments and bring them to the prep room. She happily agrees and is about to leave when a random NPC, like you guys, offers to carry half of them. Another guy offers to help too, and Shirota watches in disbelief as he says no to both of them. She then starts revealing her plot and asks him if he's forgotten the role he's promised to play. Soon after, the time reverts, but Shirota's poo-poo brain is still wondering what she meant by it. By some miracle, he realizes what she wants and offers to carry the assignments with her. Later, she scolds him because she had to sacrifice a pair for his stupidity, and Shirota apologizes for not picking up on it quickly. The guy then helps her put on her plot armor in shame, and the two continue walking carrying half assignments each. However, many students stop Takamine on the way and offer to carry them in their place, making Shirota realize she's super popular. He starts imagining her as Cleopatra and admits life would be a breeze in her shoes. Once again, Takamine turns the offer down and takes her time complimenting everyone one by one, and Shirota is shocked at how she handles the crowd. Later, she teaches Shirota that he must help her if she volunteers or agrees to do any task assigned to her. When she starts dissing him for being stupid, Shirota wishes she would keep her charming persona up even when they were alone. As they leave, he comments that she must have it tough handling so many people. But Takamine says it's not like they were all lining up to give her backshots like she's an OnlyFans thought. She then says even if she were one, she'd do great in a movie with Johnny Sins, and that makes her a great student council president for some reason. Shirota is shocked that she knew the names of everyone who approached her and asks if she's memorized everyone here. Takamine says she has because she's the president, and since people don't forget how godly she is, the least she can do is remember their names. As she begins walking, Shirota realizes he used to simp for her because of how much others loved her. But in reality, she's put a lot of effort into maintaining her status. She also explains that she's memorized a general profile of every single student, including him. She then recites his name, age, and place of birth, followed by his weak-willed personality, low self-esteem, and lack of ambition. She also knows he's terrible in every subject, but the guy stops her before she reveals all of his weaknesses. He nervously asks if she's done this much research on everyone, and Takamine sternly asks if he's implying he's any special to her. She then tells him to keep his ego in check and adds self-obsession to his profile. She also calls him a creep for staring at her chug jugs while she was changing. But now, when he's got the perfect excuse to peep, he refuses to look. Shirota believes she doesn't want him to see and tries walking past her, but she makes him trip and asks what he would do if she said he didn't mind. Before he can answer, she gets on top of him and tells him to feast his eyes. She then unbuttons her shirt and is about to test the laws of thermodynamics on him. But the guy gets nervous and blurts out that they should only do it if they're dating. Takamine bursts into laughter and then explains she wasn't expecting such an answer, explaining that she was just joking. She then sits beside him and asks if he ever sees them going on a date, but Shirota shuts it down quickly. She jokingly asks him not to shut down all possibilities so soon, which causes Shirota to trip and fall down the stairs. He then wakes up with Takamine's melons at him, and she explains they're in the nurse's office. She further reveals he hit his head when he fell from the stairs, so she used her powers to reverse time. Even after that, he stayed unconscious, so she brought him here. Shirota thanks him for it, but she tells him to talk to her thighs while she updates his profile in her mind. She then adds the fake gentleman virgin to his resume, followed by calling him an absurdly upstanding person. Later, he realizes the classes are already over, and he had an extra lesson in P. However, when he says it doesn't matter that much, Takamine comments that his lack of ambition is almost refreshing. He admits he's a loser in most spaces, like the viewers, but it'll be nice to be first in something for once. Later, she decides to conduct the extra PE lesson and asks the students to give it their all because she won't go easy on them. As the students take a run, she uses a megaphone to motivate them. Meanwhile, Shirota is dead last and worries he'll lose, only for Takamine to stop him midway. She then helps him fix his beta posture, but Shirota gets bricked up because her sweat is making her shirt see-through. Takamine pulls him even closer and assertively tells him to finish before 30 minutes. But even then, he fails to finish on time. The other participants scold him for putting Takamine to shame, but Takamine strips his plot armor and declares they'll keep doing it until he gets the job done. With that, she reverses time and brings him back to the start of the race and sternly tells him to finish in time. This time, Shirota barely manages to keep up with the other boys, but he's already thinking of ways to apologize to her in advance. Just then, Takamine follows the boys on a bicycle and starts up on purpose so others can see her cakes. Shirota doesn't want anyone to feast their eyes, so he follows her at high speeds and manages to finish first. As he catches his breath, Takamine arrives and tells him to help her cover her flap factory. While he's at it, Takamine asks how he feels, and he says even though he's exhausted, he's glad it's over. However, Takamine repeats her question, asking him how he felt to be the first to finish the race. Turns out, Shirota hadn't realized that until now because he was too focused on chasing Takamine's cakes. Shirota then thinks how it feels unreal and that he never really paid attention to rankings, but despite all of that, he tells her he is genuinely happy. Seeing the hue in his eyes makes Takamine smile, but she hides it and tells him to walk home with her. At night, Shirota realizes he accidentally brought her bag of undies home and believes it'll be fine to return them tomorrow. As he thinks about opening the bag and gooning, he gets a call from Takamine who asks if he took them home. When he says yes, she reveals the bag has sports underwear in it, and since that is the only one she has, she can't go on a jog without it. Guessing she wants him to bring it to her, he decides to walk to her place since it isn't that far. However, he stops midway and wonders if this is a test to see if he follows her wishes. He thinks about how he does his job in school, but Takamine doesn't need him at home, so he should stay at home. Just then, he gets a text from Takamine who says she's going on a run without her plot armor. He texts her to put another pair on, but she says she can run better without it, which makes him nervous. She then sends him a picture revealing she's going full commando tonight, and Shirota starts sweating bullets. He then believes Takamine is just trying to mess with him and won't go for an actual run, but she sends him a picture of her outside, which has a picture of a guy staring at her cakes in the background. Shirota starts to think she might get her V-card swiped by goons if she goes out like this, and since she's wearing her undies, she can't even reverse time to save herself. Later, as Takamine is waiting all by herself on a bench, she writes a text that she was just messing with him, and he can return her stuff tomorrow. Before she sends it, the guy comes running in, all out of breath, which makes her blush. She calls him Slota for being late, but then praises him for taking action based on her needs. Shirota reveals he came only because he was worried for her safety, which makes her blush even more. She turns around to hide it and starts teasing him, but suddenly turns around with a big smile and thanks him for being so considerate towards her. The very next second, she starts acting all high and mighty as usual, stating that it is his privilege to be able to serve a goddess like her. Even through her act, Shirota realizes there are certain things only he can do for her, because he is the only one who knows her secret. When she asks if he's too worried about her, Shirota nervously tells her to go easy on him. She then takes her bag back and comments that it's warm, and Shirota says it's because he held it close to him on his way here. She is definitely moved by this gesture, and as they begin walking, the happiness is visible on her face. The next day, during swim class, Takamine impresses everyone with her agility underwater and manages to beat everyone, including U, the ace of the swim team. As she steps out looking like a fine piece of meat, everyone, including Shirota, is shocked because the guy she just beat went abroad to train. Before Shirota can process it, Takamine says she wants to redo it and activates her powers. She goes back to the time before the race starts, and this time, she swims with her face up so everyone can look at her jiggle physics. Shirota doesn't understand why she's retaking, but getting a proper look at her from that angle makes him want to commit all 7 deadly sins on her. After winning, she walks up to Shirota and asks why he isn't curious, and the guy plays it cool. Takamine says she just wanted to leave a good impression and asks which take gave him the burn in his loins. Shirota is divided because choosing the backstrokes will be like admitting he likes her melons, and choosing the other side will make him look like he prefers her cakes. Even before he can answer, Takamine notices his reaction and starts teasing him. The guy gets flustered and asks how she swam without her plot armor, and Takamine reveals she actually sacrificed one of her pasties this time. Imagining her without one, Shirota rises to the North Pole and turns around to hide the crime scene in his pants. To make matters worse, Takamine whispers in his ear, telling him to stay put after the classes. That evening, she takes him to the mall to buy some fresh plot armor, and Shirota is nervous because he doesn't know where to look. He asks why he's here, and she says she needed a pair and he must come since he's her closet now. Takamine suddenly asks him which pair she should buy, and he nervously says either is fine. She asks why he's so on the edge, and he says he would never come here willingly, which means she ordered him to. Takamine wants to tease him more, so she makes him pick new pairs for her. Not thinking much, the guy randomly picks one, but it turns out to be the most Susie piece in the whole store. It makes her look like your mum after 2 shots at TH bar. Much to his panic, he then picks a white one to show him that her thoughts are pure, but then transitions to a black one because she's evil on the inside. He then wonders if pink will suit her more since she's kind too, but then throws all logic out of the window and picks a blue one. Takamine asks why she picked this one, but he says there is no particular reason. She then says she'll have to try it on and pulls him into the changing room, but the guy believes he shouldn't be here. However, Takamine says he must stay because he's going to be the one to put them on. He then makes him sit on his knees and shows him that she's wearing thick tights so he won't be able to see anything, even when she's going commando. Shirota tries to play cool, but she lifts her skirt and continues to tease him. Wanting to save some pride, he absent-mindedly helps put them on her, but when his face gets close to Takamine's cake valley, he overdoses on calories and passes out. Later, Takamine continues to tease him by implying that her cakes had nothing to do with his passing out, implying that he must be sick. As they step into the lift, she asks again why he chose the blue one, and he says there is no real reason. However, Takamine pins him against the wall and demands he tell her the truth, or she won't let him go. Shirota nervously admits it's because she has a high rank, which made him think of the high blue sky and the unfathomable sea. The guy then starts to panic, but Takamine exits the lift without giving any reaction, much to his surprise. Shirota chases him, asking if she likes what he picked, but she says it doesn't matter because he'll be the one putting them on her. After a brief silence, her face glows up, and she says she will not waste them on her time travel powers, which means they are important to her. The next day, Shirota catches a cold during class, and Takamine notices him going all red. After school, he decides to head home as soon as possible, but Takamine tells him to pull himself together and offers to take him home since she lives close by. Once there, she notices his room is much tidier than she expected and immediately checks his PC to find some goon material. After she demands he show her his secret folder, the guy gets nervous and closes his laptop, frantically asking her why she's here. Takamine says she's just here to nurse her own closet before it gets sick and becomes completely useless. She asks if he's eating well, and when he says no, Takamine says she'll make him something. Shirota tells him that she doesn't need to because he's fine on his own, but she forces him to accept her kindness. She then asks if she should only wear an apron while cooking, and if he would like her to feed him with her own hands. She even offers to wipe the sweat off his body while she's at it, and even hints at giving him a sloppy toppy before he goes to bed. Shirota gets tired of her constant teasing and pushes her out of his room, saying he can take care of himself and she should go home before she catches his cold. Hearing this, Takamine takes off her plot armor and manipulates time, but this time, Shirota finds a bowl of rice on his table. Takamine says she used the ingredients in the kitchen and has even prepared a towel for him, which she will reheat if it gets cold. As she leaves him to eat, he realizes she changed time to undo the teasing and wonders why she keeps switching between Cersei Lannister and Daenerys Targaryen. After getting into bed, he asks himself if this is just Takamine's way of making sure he keeps functioning as her closet. Just then, she enters the room to ask if the food was okay, and he says it was good. Takamine then gets into bed with the guy, stating that it is important to keep the body warm during a fever. When Shirota protests, she manipulates time again to make sure she doesn't have any sweat on her body and smells nice. When he says that's not what he was worried about, she asks if he would like it if she smelled sweeter. Shirota gives up trying to convince her and turns away, asking her not to poke fun at him. However, she cuddles him and says she's only doing what's important for her closet, and she should think of her as nothing more than a hot bottle of water. As she gets closer, Shirota's heart starts to race because he's in bed with the school's goddess. While he's panicking, she admits that she's gone too far with the teasing and apologizes. She then makes him turn around and buries his face in her bouncy castle, revealing that it will relieve stress and help him sleep better. Since she's going so far to help him, she tells him not to get any funny thoughts and sleep. Despite getting a first-person view of the heavenly hills, Ryu does not feel excited but rather safe, making him wonder if she actually worries about him. In that moment, he realizes that the goddess of his school is also human. He then gently asks if this is her giving him a carrot on a stick, a question that catches her off guard. Her heart races, and she nervously asks what would make him happier, but Shirota dozes out before she can get an answer. As she walks home, she sees some kids running past him and goes into a flashback where she remembers she never had a group of friends ever since she was young. One day, while she was feeding a black cat, a young Shirota showed up with a box of milk, and they offered it to the cat. Since that day, Takamine started to like him, but he doesn't even remember it. Heading home, Takamine hits the bed and starts playing with the same black cat whom she has domesticated now. She then asks the cat Kuro why Shirota thinks she's playing with him, asking why she would care so much for him if he were just a tool. Waking up, Shirota finds a message from Takamine telling him that she's heading home, and there's still some leftover rice in the fridge if he gets hungry. His fever is gone, so while he munches on it, he admits that Takamine was a little extra spicy today, which makes him heat up again. The next day, Shirota learns from Takamine that he has supplementary lessons during the summer break, and she agrees to help him if he agrees to become her slave for the rest of his life. Since he has a C grade in all subjects, he has to submit the assignments or else he'll be moved down to the D grade. When he says he'll work hard during breaks to get it done, Takamine realizes that the running training really helped him go from a couch potato to a simp working overtime. She then wishes him the best of luck and asks him not to neglect his closet duties in the meantime. In class, Shirota is busy working on assignments and wonders if he'll be able to finish them in time. Just then, Takamine is called to write something on the class board, but her perfection is spoiled when the teacher accidentally bumps into her. Shirota prepares for another time travel, but Takamine keeps her plot armor on and continues writing, much to his surprise. Later, as he's working on his assignment, a girl thanks Takamine for suggesting buying a watch for her crush because now she's getting back shots daily. However, when she says a new version of that watch was announced the very next day, Takamine hesitates to remove her plot armor and instead tells her to get it exchanged. Later in art class, Takamine once again tries to use her powers but stops herself, much to Shirota's confusion, who notices that she's not feeling well. After school, he runs into her in the hallway and notices that her condition is worse than it was in the art class. As she falls to her knees, he asks if it's happening because she didn't use her powers. but Takamine pretends that she just has a cold. However, Shirota realizes she is doing it for his sake, so he calmly tells her to stop holding back and revert the whole day so they can do it again. Takamine continues to resist the urge, saying everything went perfectly and she doesn't need to change anything. She then gets all red and says if he wants her to redo the whole that he should be the one to strip off her plot armor. While he's thinking about it, Takamine reminds him that reverting that day will also undo the assignments he's done. But he says it's fine because he can do them again easily. After the reassurance, Takamine allows him to put his hands on her flap factory and reverse time to the beginning of the day. However, Shirota quickly learns that Takamine only reverted the time by a few seconds so she could undo the embarrassment she faced just now. As they walk down the stairs, she says she'll look over the assignments with him from now on, so this doesn't happen again. A few days later, Shirota finds himself in Takamine's room, who is helping him with his assignments. When he keeps making rookie mistakes, she reverses time again so he can redo the entire paper. In the meantime, she leaves to get some coffee before telling him that her parents won't be home until the day after tomorrow. As Shirota's heart begins racing, thinking he's getting lucky today, Takamine notices he's made another mistake in the assignment, and this time deploys her meteor melons to revert time. Sometime later, Takamine asks how much progress he's made, and when he says he's halfway there, she asks if he's delaying on purpose to have a sleepover.
Yeah, boy.
She then reminds him that he's not alone and she has a cat too, and Shirota asks if he could see her kitty.
I know what kind of man you are.
Takamine believes having an animal in the room would distract him, but he says it'll actually boost his productivity. Eventually, she agrees and leaves to get the cat, but returns empty-handed because the cat is out playing. She offers to show him a different kitty instead to boost his productivity, but the only thing that will boost is his T levels. She then lies on the bed and starts acting like a cat, and Shirota is unable to focus because he knows she's going commando right now. When Shirota pretends to ignore her, she takes it a step further and only stops when she sees his ears turn red from embarrassment. Shirota finally manages to finish one assignment by night and blames Takamine for distracting him with her antics. He then thanks her for the help and is about to leave, but it begins raining heavily and Takamine asks him to stay the night.
Yes! Hell yeah!
Shirota says he's fine sleeping in the hallway, but Takamine tells him they have an empty room for guests. She then advises him to take a shower and even offers to wash him back using her chug jugs, but Shirota immediately shuts it down.
What?
Just then, Takamine's cat finally returns and she introduces her Arkuro. Takamine is hoping that seeing the cat will rekindle some old memories in him, but Shirota doesn't take the hint and starts playing with the cat in a casual manner, which causes her to freeze in shock. Just then, a power outage strikes the area, and Takamine tells him not to worry as it'll be back soon. To pass the time, she asks him to tell a fun story, but Shirota can't think of one on the spot. She then reveals they've gone to the same grade and middle school, but she cannot remember much about him from that time. She asks him to tell her some stories of his grade school years, and the guy says he used to hang out at his friend's place to play games. As he begins yapping, Takamine gets frustrated because she wants him to remember her and chugs down an entire bottle of water to cool off. She then sternly asks if he has any more stories to tell, but when he tells her about his nickname, she quickly shuts him down. Shirota fails to understand why she's suddenly in a bad mood, and to escape the torture, he asks if he can use her shower. Takamine leaves the room for a second, then returns in a night suit and says he can't use his shower out of spite. As she lies with her face towards the wall, Shirota believes Takamine got bored hearing his uninteresting stories, so he tries to think of something fun before she falls asleep. Eventually, he recalls being friends with a girl who used to take care of a black cat in a park. On a rainy day, he took a towel and an umbrella for the cat to ensure she's safe, only to learn that the girl had already taken care of it. Takamine finally gets up and asks why he didn't begin with this story, and Shirota hesitantly tells her that he had a fallout with that girl. One day, she confessed her feelings to him out of nowhere, and when he failed to give an answer, she stopped coming to the park and took the cat with her. Shirota wishes he could see her again, but he didn't even know her name or which grade she was in, which is why this memory is filled with regrets. Takamine asks what he will do if he meets that girl again, and Shirota shockingly asks if she knows her, much to her disappointment. However, she quickly regains composure and gives him credit for remembering. Just then, they're both distracted by loud thunder, which somehow causes Takamine's plot armor to be stripped. Instead of getting embarrassed, she starts acting weird and jumps on him when lightning strikes again. Shirota finally realizes that Takamine is scared of lightning, and she was purposely distracting him from finishing the assignment so he could stay the night. As she lies on top of him, she nervously says she wants to undo this moment. But since her powers don't work on him, she asks him to erase it from her memory. After the power returns, Takamine decides to cook dinner, but since that alone doesn't satisfy her OCD, she decides to play a game where they have to act like newlyweds, minus the part where she gets back shots like an obedient housewife. If any one of them breaks the rules, they will have to remain single for the rest of their lives, which is routine for a virgin like Shirota.
Emotional, damn it!
After she leaves, Shirota follows her to the kitchen but gets flustered when he sees her in nothing but an apron. When he calls her Miss President, she reminds him that no husband will ever call their wife that unless they're doing Hillary Clinton roleplay. He tries calling her Takane-san, and after much effort, he manages to tell her that she should wear something under the apron. She tells him to help her out, and the guy hesitantly puts some plot armor on her to cover her cheesecake. She then asks him to help with the soup, but the guy is so focused on her that he ends up burning it. Takamine then uses her powers to reverse time and lightly scolds him for being careless. Once the food is ready, they sit together to eat, but Takamine believes a wife should feed her husband with her own hands. Because of his nervousness, a little bit of that soup falls on Takamine's thighs, so she asks if he'd like to taste it from there. Her logic is that she made it with so much love, and wasting even a single drop would break her heart. As she stands up to give him a glimpse of her wonderland, Takamine quickly reverses time, revealing that she was just messing with him. He wonders how she managed to do it, and she reveals she used one of her pasties to do so. She then explains that even though they're playing a game, she won't let him hit it so easily. After they're done eating, she says she'll prepare a bath and asks Shirota to join him like a good husband. However, when Shirota remains hesitant, she realizes it's too early for her to see his cocktopus prime. Later, Shirota is in the shower alone and can't seem to find soap. Just then, Takamine walks in, and Shirota argues that she's taking this game way too far. She then reveals that she's wearing a swimsuit under the towel, but it is spicier than buffalo wings. Flustered, the guy asks her to wait outside while he finishes, but Takamine says she's here as an obedient housewife to wash his back. She then explains she's using him as a dummy to practice when the time comes, and Shirota is somehow okay with being treated like a useless object. He calmly agrees to let her do whatever she wants, when in reality, his King Kong is ready to explore the jungle. When she begins washing his back and speaking in a soft voice, Shirota gets increasingly bothered and starts counting prime numbers to keep his sword in the sheath. Just then, he feels something soft touching his back and immediately turns around to see Takamine holding some sort of cushions. With a miracle, he manages to make it through the whole thing, but Takamine decides it's time to wash his hair now. Having no other choice, the guy sits there while she puts shampoo in his hair. She says she doesn't have a male shampoo right now and is using her own on his hair, and Shirota can immediately tell that it smells just like her. She then begins touching his ears, and the guy gets so nervous that he instinctively pushes her away. However, when he realizes that he's accidentally grabbed her honka-donka, he crashes out and jumps into the bathtub, facing towards the wall. Takamine decides to tease him more, but when she notices he's giving her the silent treatment, she gets nervous and quickly exits the shower. At night, while Shirota is in bed, Takamine enters his room, climbs on top of him, and hopes that her actions today are enough to make him realize how much she wants to get clapped. She then quickly switches to her goddess act, and Shirota realizes that she was acting so mean because she was embarrassed to show her weaker side to him. A few days later, they are on patrol during the fireworks to ensure students don't blow up the whole place. Shirota meets Takamine at the festival, who came dressed in the traditional yakuza. After taking a short walk, she asks him to put the plot armor on her, explaining that she went commando from the get-go. Since they are in the middle of a crowd, she acts like her sandal broke so Shirota can bend down and use that as an excuse to do what she actually wants. After they're done, Takamine suggests they stay around the area, but a couple comments on how Shirota looks like an ugly bum compared to Takamine.
Emotional, damn it!
Shirota learns from this encounter that he and Takamine look like a couple and imagines how she would react if they were actually dating. Just then, he hears another girl invite her boyfriend over and imagines himself in the same scenario where Takamine will let him explore her chamber of secrets. When the fireworks go off, Takamine realizes this area is clear and reverses time so they can check another one. She then takes him to the spot where they first met, explaining that she will use this as a respawn point to survey all areas. They head to an area with a bridge, where Shirota gets nervous seeing a couple kiss. When Takamine suggests they stay here for a bit, he starts wondering if she also plans to kiss him here. As the fireworks start, she tells him to put the plot armor on her while all the adults are busy watching the fireworks. They follow the same procedure and check all areas one by one, but Shirota notices that her mood is getting worse with each cycle. He figures it's because he's too spaced out, but he still can't understand why Takamine keeps choosing areas that are empty. After running his brain on a hamster wheel, he puts 2 and 2 together and realizes she might be planning or expecting a confession. As his inner monologue begins to scream, he looks at her face, which appears unusually calm. When the fireworks go off, Takamine asks him what he thinks of the fireworks. He hesitantly replies that they're very pretty, which makes her chuckle due to his incoherent statement. Looking at him with a smile, she says she's happy before suggesting they head home. Despite all of that, Shirota still doesn't understand what's going on and begins to walk home with her. A few days later, Takamine calls Shirota to invite him to an open campus at Aogaku, which she plans on visiting this weekend. Aogaku is a university for the most prestigious students, and with his dull personality, Shirota doesn't see himself getting enrolled there. She then asks him what his future plans are, and even before he can answer, she says he should follow her wherever she goes, like a good closet. Shirota argues that it won't be possible if they go to different universities, but it won't be impossible given Takamine's powers. She then opens her video camera and shows him that she's wearing a spicy plot armor, which makes him panic. He asks why she's going down the degeneration route, and Takamine replies that ever since he picked those spicy ones at the store, she's been curious about what lingerie feels like. She then gives him a good view of what heaven looks like and tells him that if he somehow makes it to the same university as her, she'll let him slap her kitty without mittens. She also tells him about a scenario where she becomes an OnlyFans thought who sells her soul for $5, but Shirota sternly tells her not to go down that route. Takamine says if he wants to avoid that scenario, then he must work hard and enroll in the same university as her so he can continue to be her closet. Just then, Kiro knocks her phone down, and she frantically ends the call before Shirota cracks some walnuts in her honor.
Oh yes, Daddy.
A few days later, Shirota joins Takamine on the open campus tour, and everywhere they go, Takamine turns some heads due to her gravity-defying melon. After looking around, she tells him that her university life heavily depends on him, and if he fails to enroll here, she'll have to go commando by herself in the lecture hall. If someone films her, they will blackmail her into become a Twitch thought, and she'll end up getting backshots from strangers for free. Shirota asks her why she can't just undo all of that, but Takamine calls him boring for not playing along. She then asks him what his plans are for the future, and Shirota hesitantly says he plans to work after college. Turns out, his sister has an entrance exam, and it'll be tough for his family to afford both their education fee. Despite appreciating his thoughtfulness, Takamine states that a part-time job will suffice, so he can still act as her closet. After the mock lecture, the teacher asks if anyone has a question, and Takamine raises her hand. She asks what the benefits of graduating from this university are and learns that professors often write recommendations for employment for hardworking students. Shirota then looks at her, impressed, but she suddenly removes her plot armor because she wants to have another take. She asks the same question in a different wording, and then points at Shirota to do his job. Shirota is initially hesitant, but when she explains how it's impossible to get spotted here, he goes for it. As they walk home, he asks if it was really important to undo just to change a few words, and Takamine replies that God is in the details. She also admits that she wants to make full use of him now because she doesn't know how long they have until their dynamic falls apart. He was under the impression that Takamine would make him work overtime, but she makes it clear that she is not that tyrannical. However, there's still a whole year before that happens, so she's going to use him as much as she can until then. Shirota recalls how he was forced into this situation and wanted to have an out, but now that there's an end in sight, he doesn't feel like celebrating. The next day, students are called for a mandatory attendance, and Shirota runs into Takamine on the way to school. She immediately notices that his face looks dull and tells him to continue walking because they have a train to catch. However, he notices that she's suffering from a wardrobe malfunction, and everyone is taking pictures of her. When he lets her know, Takamine says it is intentional, but then fixes her skirt, thinking Shirota doesn't want other guys to see her cakes. As they continue walking, He even notices that she's only wearing one sock and starts to suspect that something might be wrong with her. As they take the train, Shirota worries that Takamine might damage her reputation today, so he decides to look for her plot armor before they reach the school. Just then, he notices from the jiggle physics of her melons that she's got no plot armor on, but before he can tell her, she catches him staring at her bouncy castle. As the doors close, a part of her shirt gets stuck in it and exposes her secrets, and since Shirota remembers seeing her divine pairs will make others immune to her powers, he quickly covers them up with his hands. Takamine immediately uses her powers to 7 in the morning, and Shirota realizes she's redoing the whole day. Shirota then realizes that even if she sees him as a tool, the thought of losing him might have messed with Takamine's head, which is why she became clumsy. To make sure that never happens again, he decides to join a cram school so he can be in the same university as her. However, as he steps inside, he runs into a 10 out of 10 blonde who recognizes him. She immediately hugs him and introduces herself as Ellie. After signing up for the lesson, the two walk together, and Shirota remembers he last saw her about 5 years ago. She also recalls she used to be taller than her, but now he's gained a few inches in all the right places. Back then, they used to play all the time until they enrolled in different schools. Shirota comments that she's grown a lot and is well dressed too, and Ellie proudly accepts his compliment, claiming she's an amateur model. She then asks if he's got plans after this, and when he says no, she takes him to the same park they used to play in. Once there, Shirota sees a stairway that leads to the place where she first met Takamine, although he doesn't remember her in the present. Seeing him zone out, Ellie quickly grabs her hand and drags him to the fountain where they used to have water balloon fights. She asks if he wants to do it again, but Shirota feels a little embarrassed because they're not the same age now. Ellie fails to take the hint and leaves to get balloons, and Shirota realizes she's just as energetic as she used to be. While filling them up for Shirota, she explains the rules, and when it comes to filling them for herself, she fills giant balloons instead. However, her balloon blows up immediately, and she's drenched. Shirota gives her a towel, but she says she doesn't need it because she isn't wearing any plot armor. Hearing this makes Shirota's pickle tickle, so he suggests they get ice cream instead. On the way to the shop, he wonders why Ellie has no guard and worries that Takamine will step on his face if she finds out about her. After some time, he arrives with a towel and ice cream, but Ellie carelessly lifts her shirt to show that she's already dried up. Shirota panics and tells her not to display her melons to the public, but she says she only does it for him because their friendship exceeds gender. As they settle down, she asks what school he is aiming for, and Shirota doesn't even know if he'll even attend one. He recalls Takamine asking him to join the same college as him, but he doesn't know if he can afford it or not. When he tells her about it, Ellie asks him if he's dating this girl, which sends him into a panic. However, Ellie can tell just from the look on his face that he wants to give her back shots. After giving her back pats, she comments that the girl in question invited him into the same school because she likes him. She then offers him her own ice cream, but it melts onto his neck, and Ellie starts licking it off. Shirota panics, and Ellie starts acting goofy, saying that it's common among girls, and Shirota starts imagining her going Suzy Baka with Takamine. He gets concerned because he knows Takamine won't approve of this if he saw him, and much to his horror, she appears right behind him. At first, she appears furious, but then shifts to her playful mood and calls him bold for being indecent in public. Shirota asks her why she's here, given she wasn't feeling well, but Takamine boldly claims that she's always in her top form. She then shifts back to her anger mode and asks why he was being so loose with this busty chump, but Ellie gets happy because she called her busty. Ellie then pulls out the balloon and says they were playing with these, and Takamine gets flustered because she mistakes the balloon for a willy wrapper. However, she knows Shirota doesn't have the balls to make moves on a girl, so she asks Ellie what her intentions are. They collectively tell her that they were really going to play with them because of the heat, which again gives her the wrong impression. When Ellie invites her to join, she starts imagining all of them in a three-way, but Shirota says he doesn't want to make her drenched. Takamine, still misunderstanding, confidently says he doesn't have even Riz to make her moist. After Ellie leaves to fill up the balloons, he asks Takamine if she's really okay with it, but she slaps him across the face and scolds him for being a playboy. After she gives him a lecture on how he should focus on getting into a good university, instead of doing this, Ellie steps in and says she forced him to play with her. When Takamine sees the pack of balloons in her hand, she finally realizes that it's all been a huge misunderstanding. Ellie then introduces herself, and Takamine remembers her as the energetic girl who used to play with Shirota. Embarrassed about her assumptions, Takamine is about to leave, but Ellie insists she stay and sends Shirota to get them drinks. After he leaves, Ellie apologizes to Takamine because she went to an all-girls school and has no idea where to draw boundaries around boys. She says it's perfectly natural for a woman to react this way if some other girl got close to the man she loves, and then proceeds to compliment Takamine's looks. When Takamiya tries to tell her that she's not in love with Shirota, Ellie tells her to stop hiding it because it's all over her face. As Shirota returns, Takamine sternly tells her not to say a word to him, and she agrees to stay quiet. Just then, she says she has a shoot coming up in Skedaddles, leaving Shirota alone with Takamine. As she leaves, she tells him she'll see him at cram school, and Takamine starts to question if he's going there to get a shotty on his love stick. Shirota explains there are a lot of problems he doesn't get, and he wanted to join a cram school to work on them so he can attend the same university as her. Takamine gets moist just by hearing this, but then gets a little upset because Ellie knew before her. When she promises to help him, Shirota says he doesn't need to, but she takes off her plot armor and reverses time. She then tells him that he should just say thank you instead of arguing, and then hands him her underwear so he can put it on her. While he's at it, she gently tells him that she is only doing this to help him because he's working so hard to do something for her. After that, she extends her hand, and once he grabs it, she says she's going to take him home and make him pump until his legs give out. That evening, Shirota studies under her supervision and is distracted by not one but two kitties at a time. The next day after cram school, Shirota and Ellie run into Takamine, who suggests they hang out together. Ellie suggests they go to a nearby restaurant, but Shirota feels a little uncomfortable because of what happened at the park. Just then, a waitress takes their order, and after she leaves, Ellie reveals that she goes to the same high school as her. As they eat, Takamine asks Shirota about the cram school, and he says he's coming along just fine. He also says he's glad to have Ellie in his class, and Ellie shares the same sentiment. She recalls how they used to study together all the time back in grade school, and Takamine uses this as an opportunity to tease Shirota. She tells Ellie that Shirota insisted she give him private lessons, and even forced her to cosplay as a cat girl because she likes slapping kitties. Ellie is oblivious to her teasing and figures it must be Halloween that day. She then suggests they have a study session followed by a sleepover like they used to before, but Takamine tells her not to make the same mistake as her because she couldn't walk straight for a week when Shirota stayed over at her place. Shirota asks her not to tell lies about him, but Takamine says Ellie doesn't know how big of a degenerate he has become, which makes her a little worried. Outside, Takamine warns Ellie again about Shirota, but she becomes a little nervous and asks her if they can speak in private. As they leave the guy confused, Ellie apologizes to Takamine because she made her think she's hitting on Shirota. She also apologizes for recounting old times with the guy, thinking it must have made Takamine jealous. Even before she can explain herself, Ellie assures her that she and Shirota are purely platonic, and she already has someone she loves. She then jokes that she'd rather taste with her cookies instead of Shirota's sausage because she swings both ways. Just then, the waitress from earlier shows up, and Ellie leaves with her hand in hand, making Takamine realize she has nothing to worry about. She then joins Shirota on the roadside. When he asks what they talked about, Takamine shrugs it off, saying she has been unjustly suspicious of Ellie. Meanwhile, Ellie is scolded by her girlfriend for trying to hit on another girl. Back with Takamine, she pulls out the leftover balloons from the other day and asks Shirota to play with her. She takes him to the same park and forces him to agree, stating that whoever loses will have to fulfill one of the winner's demands. Shirota knows he stands no chance against her, even if he tries, so he decides to just miss all his shots. Much to his surprise, Takamine runs into his shot on purpose, then reveals that since her clothes got wet, her plot armor is now visible. Shirota recalls that Ellie was so bold she wasn't even wearing any, and seeing him distracted makes Takamine upset. She throws all the balloons at him at once, and after winning the contest, she asks him to give her a tongue twister. Shirota gets nervous and realizes that Takamine is just getting back at him for everything he did with Ellie. He reminds her that they are in a public park, but Takamine says he and Ellie did the same thing here, so why is he hesitating with her? Giving up, he asks her where she wants to experience it, and she tells him to start the buffet with her melons and end at her cookie. With no other choice, they head to a discreet location, and Takamine makes him do things that'll get this video demonetized. After they're done, Takamine reveals she did it so whenever he comes to this park, he forgets about Ellie and only remembers what happened today with her. On the last day of the summer break, they arrive at a leisure facility because Takamine had promised to help him study once his cram school was over. He believes she's come here just for him, so he wants to repay her in any way possible. She then asks Shirota if he'd like to do anything before they begin, and he suggests they get drinks. Takamine already has 2 drink coupons, but even before she shows them off, Shirota disappears and returns with drinks. However, she reverses time and hands him the coupon anyway. After that, they head to the general store and browse through various items, where Takamine takes a liking to a plushie. Shirota quickly leaves to buy it for her, but she gets upset and reverses time again because she's not ready to accept gifts from him. After that, they decide to sail a boat, and Takamine admits it's nicer than she expected. Seeing him getting exhausted, she asks him to hand her the oars, but when Shirota insists on being the alpha male, she jumps into the water and reverses time to before they hopped on that boat. She gets so upset that she puts her plot armor on her own, and when Shirota asks why she didn't ask him, she gets even more annoyed. Shirota finally realizes that whatever he's doing to repay her isn't working, but Takamine says she's only upset at herself because this trip was about rewarding him for working so hard, not the other way around. The guy thanks her for everything, stating that she doesn't need to do anything special since she's already doing so much for him. He also admits he stayed up late to make a plan so she would have fun today, and even though that makes Takamine's cookie moist, she calls him cocky for thinking he can bring her joy. Days later, Shirota is on his way to Takamine's place when he runs into Ellie, and she forces herself into the group. Now she's here with them, ruining Takamine's plan of getting her regular dose of back shots. Takamine is displeased by her presence and asks why she didn't let her girlfriend Rurika teach her. Ellie says she's busy with her job and rarely hangs out with her, so she doesn't have the time to teach her. This makes Shirota realize Ellie plays for the other team, so he's never getting that sloppy toppy from her. Just then, Ellie accidentally touches Takamine's melons, and Shirota worries she might lose her cool. Not wanting to deal with her, Takamine asks Shirota to go to the store and get some drinks, but the man believes it's not okay to leave the girls alone. However, when Takamine gives him the bombastic side eye, he runs faster than Flash to the store. Afterward, Takamine tells Ellie to go home because she can't focus on 2 idiots at once, so Ellie asks him if she's already dating Shirota. Takamine acts like Shirota is beneath her, saying she'd never let such filth touch her, but Ellie sees right through her acting, which makes her flustered. Ellie says the man's as dumb as a rock and doesn't even notice that she's giving him signals. Takamine admits that no matter how many times she's approached him, his reactions are always so muted, which makes her feel insecure. However, she quickly comes up with a cover-up story about a different girl making moves on him, and Ellie finds her tactics really cute. She even says this girl rizzed him up in a cat cosplay and even joined her in the bath, but none of these tactics worked. Ellie, understanding what she's getting at, asks Takamine if Shirota has done anything for this mystery girl. Takamine then recalls how he ran to the park late at night, took care of her when she wasn't feeling well, and even planned a whole date so she could have fun. However, the thing that gives her butterflies the most is the fact that he's working so hard to get into the same university as her. Takamine can't help but admire Shirota's loyalty, which is why she thinks his actions are motivated by morals rather than affection. However, Ellie believes that Shirota doing things for her is enough evidence that he likes her, and his dedication to get into the same university as her also means he wants to spend more time with her. Takamine then asks if she really came to give her assurances, because she initially thought she came here to touch her melons. Ellie immediately apologizes for the earlier incident, and Takamine says she'll let her play with her chug jugs if she asks directly. Around the same time, Shirota returns with the drinks and walks upstairs, wondering if the girls are doing all right. He imagines Takamine breaking her bones and tries to listen in on the door to make sure it's safe to enter. However, the voices tell her that Ellie and Takamine are playing rock, paper, scissors, but are heavily focused on the scissors part. He imagines Ellie playing with Takamine's kitty, but his version has a different kind of kitty in mind. A few days later, Takamine and Shirota are walking to school, and she comments that she really likes her uniform. She recalls that her summer uniform was a little see-through, but with this one, she doesn't have to worry about displaying her melons. This makes Shirota flustered, as he realizes that she wasn't wearing any plot armor the entirety of last winter. Seeing his flustered face, Takamine suggests they play a game and makes him turn around. She then uses her powers to make it so she didn't bring her umbrella. But now she wants him to guess which piece she used to activate her powers. He has to make a guess before they reach the station, and whoever wins will get to give one command to the loser. Shirota says it's unfair because it's a 50-50 gamble, but Takamine believes he's got enough riz to figure it out. She then says he can command her to teach him in a swimsuit next time, but Shirota is more interested in what she will command him to do if he loses. Takamine says she'll sew his eyes shut, lock his arms, and force him to listen to Taylor Swift until his brain rots. Shirota still worries the game isn't fair, but Takamine doesn't care and begins walking. As they head to the station, Shirota wonders how he can figure out the right answer without Takamine labeling him as a diddler. He decides to see her reflection through the puddle to see if she used her panties, but then stops because he doesn't want to see her kitty just yet. Eventually, they reach the station, and Shirota makes the wrong guess, prompting Takamine to tease him even further. In reality, Shirota didn't feel right looking down her chamber of secrets, so he decided to just take a wild guess, which failed. Takamine says she wanted him to win so she could see what kind of weird fantasies he had about her, and even walked over the puddle to give him hints, which makes him flustered. Now it's time for her to give him a command, and she says it'll depend on how he acts today. On the train, they discuss the upcoming cultural festival and how their class is put in charge of the Cinderella party. When Shirota says she'll help backstage, Takamine recalls that he didn't participate on stage even last year. The guy says he doesn't want T-Spotlight, but Takamine tells him that he'll have to be an act in the play this year. She wants to deliver a perfect performance as Cinderella, and for that, she needs him on stage at all times. Later in class, Takamine announces that she's playing Cinderella, and the whole class gets excited. She then asks people to volunteer for stagehands, but when Shirota raises his hand, she steps on the bench and uses her powers to reverse time. She then says she needs someone to write notes for her and asks Shirota to come forward. Afterward, she calls for the prince's role, and while the class is busy discussing who to pick, she signals him to perform his closet duties. As several guys volunteer, a top-ranked student, Aoji, also raises his hand, and even though he's quite popular, Shirota knows he has had a bad history with women. When the other volunteers retreat, Takamine realizes he'll get the role at this rate, and if he finds out about her powers, he might use them to make her do unspeakable things. Since she's in a tough spot, Shirota activates his simp mode and volunteers as well, sparking a rivalry between the two. Takamine calls an open vote to decide who wins, and Shirota loses the popularity contest as expected. As they walk home, he asks if she's really going to make Aoji her closet, but Takamine says she said so only to motivate him. She then asks why he applied for the Prince Guard role, and he says it'll get him a lot of screen time, and this way, he can help her whenever she wants. Even though he lost, he still got one vote, which makes him wonder who was dumb enough to do so. For the next few days, the students would gather after class to prepare for the play until there was only one day left. On that day, Takamine asks the class if anyone needs help with anything, and a girl asks her to help with the stage backdrops. Others decide to help as well, but when Shirota hesitates to volunteer, Takamine approaches him herself and gently asks him to give her a hand. However, the other students in the class start giving him side eyes because they're jealous she touched his shoulder. As they get to work, Shirota realizes this is the first time she's talked to him in front of others. Just then, another student scolds him for messing up the design, but Takamine gets upset and uses her powers to revert time, taking him back to before he messed up. She then takes him backstage, telling him that the backdrop he's working on is super important and they have to get it right. She also tells him to perform his closet duties, and while he does so, she leans over and starts talking to another girl. Even before he can finish the job, Takamine starts walking away, telling Shirota that she'll handle the rest on her own. She gently tells him to be faster next time before trying on the maid's costume, which makes everyone fall for her beauty. After finishing the rest of the preparations, Takamine praises everyone for their hard work and advises them to get a lot of rest tonight and enjoy tomorrow. After everyone leaves, Shirota is the only one left behind, and he gets a text from Takamine asking him to come to the rooftop entrance. Once there, he wonders if he did something to make her angry, but Takamine casually walks up and opens the lock, revealing she got the keys from the staff using her president privileges. They head to the roof, and Shirota is shocked to see so many stars in the sky. He asks why they are here, and she says she just wanted to watch stargaze with him. She also says that next year they will be having entrance exams, so this is basically the last time they're going to enjoy the festival. She then talks about how thrilling the evenings before the big events are, but this one became even more enjoyable because she had a closet at hand. Shirota figures she brought him here so he could also feel the thrill of this big day, so he says they can be together in the cultural festival of their university, which will be even bigger than this one. He says he looks forward to spending the nights with her and so on, and it makes Takamine blush. She jokingly asks what he meant by spending the nights together, and Shirota clarifies that he meant as in working for the festival. Takamine goes all quiet for a second, then explains that he actually hated Cinderella, because even though she wanted something, she stayed passive for it. Takamine believes one must be proactive in pursuit of something because no fairy godmother will show up in real life. But she also felt empathy because Cinderella didn't have the courage, and her pride got in the way. She understands that the harder something is, the more people wait, hoping something will come to them. She then vaguely admits that she finally has the courage to admit what she wants and walks towards Shirota, gently holding his hand. Before she can say the magic words, she sneezes and Shirota panics, thinking she'll get a cold. He quickly gives her his jacket and suggests they go home now, so Takamine decides to do it some other time. The next day at the festival, Takamine tells the class that they will hold a rehearsal before noon, so everyone is free to enjoy themselves until then. She then notices that Shirota is sweating like a pig and looks like one too, so she grabs his hand and drags him across the hall with everyone watching in shock. She says she wants him to enjoy the festival to calm his nerves, and the guy is shocked to see her looking out for him. Meanwhile, the others start throwing shade at Shirota because she's holding his hand, which makes him even more nervous. To avoid the others, Takamine takes him to the Hall of Spiders, but Shirota quickly realizes that she's actually terrified of those 8-legged devils. He recalls how thunder scared her as well, which shows she's not good with jump scares. He suggests they head back, but Takamine wants to go forward to save face. However, when she gets jump scared, she quickly uses her powers to revert time. She then starts yapping about how she pretended to be shocked to shake off his nerves. As they continue forward, they get jump scared again, and this time, she uses her other garment to reverse time. She starts to panic, but when Shirota says it's a fake haunted house, she again pretends that she was merely acting. As they continue forward, Shirota realizes she's pushing herself this far just for his sake, which makes him feel flattered. Just then, a giant spider grabs her leg, and she jumps into Shirota's arms, making the guy feel the elasticity of her melons. When more spiders drop from the ceiling, Takamine runs away screaming, and Shirota follows her, only to find her caught in the web with her whole museum on display. When Shirota tries to free her, she hears some students coming in their direction and panics because it will tank her reputation. In the last moment, he decides to scare the girls off by being a part of the haunted house, but the girls are so cringed out that they just walk away. Later, Shirota apologizes to Takamine for putting her in that spot, but she says it was all part of her master plan. They then head into the waiting room, only to learn that Aoji, the guy playing the main lead, still hasn't come to school, and his phone is off as well. Just then, the guy shows up looking like he fell from heaven and landed on concrete, and there is no way he can play the main lead now. Takamine then suggests they find a replacement by cutting the role that's the least significant to the story. That role appears to be the Prince Guard, which means Shirota will now have to play the main lead. Soon after, the play starts, and Takamine takes the stage during the opening scene, being introduced as a beautiful girl living on the outskirts of a forest. As the play continues, Shirota stays in the back, rehearsing the lines, looking like he got invited to a ditty party. He couldn't say no to Takamine, so all he can do now is stay calm because the prince doesn't have many lines. Back on stage, Cinderella is asked to get tea, but it tastes bad and her stepmom throws it on her face, which makes her plot armor see-through. As she's forced to mop the floor, everyone in the audience gets super invested in the play, which makes Shirota even more nervous. Soon after, Cinderella's stepsisters tell her to watch the house while they head to a ball. She asks if she can come with them, but they leave her behind, saying she has nothing to wear anyway. Afterward, she begins to sing songs of her misery when a fairy godmother hears her voice and grants her a fancy dress, asking her to return before midnight. As Takamine goes backstage to change, she finds Shirota sweating bullets and calmly tells him to have fun on stage. When she goes back on stage, Shirota recalls how she told him this is the last time they'll have a large-scale festival in school, which is why she wants to enjoy it. Just then, the prince is called on stage, and Shirota walks in. hoping he can at least get his first lines right. However, when he looks at dozens of audience members staring right at him with death stares, he completely blanks out. Seeing him in trouble, Takamine pushes him down and takes off her plot armor, reverting time to before he was called on stage. She then calls him to the changing room and scolds him for being so careless. She also tells him not to pay attention to the audience because no one cares about him anyway, and advises him to just look at her when he's on stage. This time, Shirota confidently walks on stage, knowing that even though Takamine's words were harsh, there was kindness wrapped in them. He then causally asks her for a dance, and Takamine happily agrees. Shirota is glad he got through the first line, and now he has to wait for her solo to end so he can appear again. When the lights go out, he opens his eyes and finds his face buried in Takamine's chocolate factory. Takamine then starts to sing in her angelic voice, while Shirota carefully puts her plot armor on her. When the lights come back on, Shirota somehow manages to get into place, after which the story follows smoothly. Then, during the climax, Shirota comes to Cinderella's to see if the sandal fits, but Aoji storms into the scene, claiming that Shirota is an imposter who took his place while he was away due to injury. Shirota is confused because this was not part of the script, only to learn that Aoji is acting on his own, and he must improvise. Takamine quickly adapts to the new situation, and Aoji starts venting out, saying she shouldn't let a filthy man like Shirota touch her. In contrast, he's been applying hand cream for a week, which makes Shirota realize he's jealous because he wanted to touch her instead. Takamine tries to salvage the situation, but Shirota, angry that he's trying to ruin her last festival, speaks over her. He tells Aoji that even if he's an imposter, he won't give up on her, and someone selfish like him doesn't deserve her in the first place. This line not only makes Takamine's cookie wet, but also makes Shirota the real hero in front of the crowd. The narrator then creates suspense by asking the audience who Cinderella will choose. But Takamine suddenly kisses Shirota in front of everyone, shocking everyone. She then drags Shirota off stage, and they both run out of the theater, making the crowd go wild. Later, the girls ask Takamine if she really kissed Shirota, and she plays it cool, saying she did what she had to save the play. As the festival reaches its end, Takamine praises Shirota for his passable acting, and the guy wonders if she kissed him as a reward for being a good puppy. When he asks her why she kissed him, Takamine says she'll kiss him again and again until he finally understands why, which makes him realize there might be more to it. He figures it is because she wants him to be her closet in the university too, but Takamine reverts time, clearly frustrated that he couldn't get it right. Since she has to be there for the closing ceremony, she asks Shirota to think hard about it, and until he gets the right answer, he has to continue being her closet. That's it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and comment, "I love feet," if you made it till the end.